I just read the most perfectly satirical tweet about software development that I've seen in years, and it captures everything that's broken about how we build software in 2025. Let me read you this thing because it's absolutely brilliant. Just discovered my best friend has been vibe coding for the last 2 years. I was horrified. He's been shipping full products with no specs, no diagrams, no architecture reviews, just trying things until it feels right. I invited him over for an intervention. Now pause right there. This friend has been vibe coding for 2 years. What does that mean? It means he's been describing what he wants to AI, iterating quickly, shipping features when they work, and moving on to the next thing. No 20-page architecture documents, no quarterly review boards, just build, test, ship. The tweet continues, we opened his metrics, apps in production 3, paying customers 1,200, monthly downtime 0 minutes. It was worse than I imagined. Wait, worse? 3 apps in production, 1,200 paying customers, 0 downtime. That sounds like massive success to me. But let's keep going because this is where it gets really good. Millions of lines of undocumented intuition, completely non-compliant with any serious engineering framework. I did the only thing a real friend could do. We spent the entire weekend rebuilding his workflow. So this guy sees his friend being successful and decides to intervene. What does he do? He introduces JIRA, Quarterly Architecture Councils, RFC templates, RACI matrices, and a strict no code without diagram policy. The results? His shipping pace collapsed overnight. But now every button change requires a 9-page design doc, a risk analysis, and a future scalability assessment for when he hits 10 million users. Revenue growth stalled, but his Confluence space has never looked more enterprise ready. This is satire, but it's the kind of satire that cuts deep because it's based on absolute truth. This person took a successful entrepreneur shipping products and making money and turned him into a blocked, overprocessed senior engineer who can't ship anything without committee approval. And here's the kicker at the end. I've never been more proud of him. He's no longer some chaotic vibe coder. He's finally a blocked, overprocessed senior engineer. The entire tweet is making fun of what happens when you take enterprise software development processes and apply them to entrepreneurs who are actually shipping products and making money. And the comments are where this gets even more interesting. One commenter named Masha absolutely nailed it. You just highlighted the main reason I left the corporate world, where engineering was no longer about coding, but some stupid structure for the sake of making it look enterprise friendly. That's the whole problem right there. Modern enterprise software development has become more about process than product, more about documentation than delivery, more about covering your ass than creating value. And people who actually want to build things are escaping to environments where they can just ship. Then you've got Vlad coming in with the traditional enterprise mindset. These newbies don't understand that software needs to be built in a way that is easier to extend in the future. Good job of making sure there's good documentation in place to help onboard new devs. And look, I get where Vlad is coming from. I've been building enterprise systems for nearly 30 years. Documentation matters, architecture matters. But you know what matters more? Shipping products that customers pay for. This guy had 1,200 paying customers with 0 downtime. That's not luck. That's working software. Here's what the enterprise crowd doesn't understand. The question isn't whether you need documentation and architecture. The question is when you need it and how much you need. If you're a solo entrepreneur or a small team, spending weeks on architecture documents before you've validated that anyone wants your product is insane. It's cargo cult engineering. And then there's Kashav with the skeptical take. 2 years. No vibe coder survives 2 years. Prove me wrong. Either he gives up or becomes a real dev. If you meant he is a dev using AI to build, that is different case. And that last line is the key. A dev using AI to build is a different case. That's exactly what vibe coding is, and that's exactly why it works. Let me tell you what vibe coding really is, because there's a lot of confusion here. Vibe coding is development driven by describing desired functionality in plain English to AI agents, iterating quickly based on results, and shipping when it works. It's not about having no standards, it's about having the right standards at the right time. When I'm building a NetSuite customization for a client, I can spend 3 weeks writing detailed specifications, creating UML diagrams, getting sign-offs from 6 different stakeholders, and then building exactly what was specified. Or I can have a conversation with the client about what they need, describe it to Claude or another AI, iterate on the results until it does what they want, and ship it in 3 days. Which approach delivers value faster? Which one is more responsive to what the customer actually needs versus what they thought they needed 3 weeks ago? The answer is obvious. Here's what the old guard doesn't understand. AI-assisted development isn't about lowering standards. It's about removing the friction between intent and implementation. When I can describe a workflow in English and have AI generate the working code, test it, refine it, and deploy it all in the same day, I'm not being sloppy, I'm being efficient. The traditional software development lifecycle made sense when writing code was the bottleneck. When every line of code required a human to type it, think through edge cases, handle errors, and test functionality, you needed all that upfront planning because the cost of mistakes was enormous. But when AI can generate thousands of lines of working code in minutes, iterate on it instantly based on feedback, and handle 90% of the edge cases automatically, the bottleneck isn't coding anymore. The bottleneck is knowing what you want to build and validating that people will pay for it. Now, let me tell you why this matters for entrepreneurs and business owners who aren't developers. The barrier to building software products has collapsed. You can now build complete sales funnels, landing pages, membership sites, entire software products without writing a single line of traditional code. I'm seeing people on platforms like Warrior Plus and JVZoo launching products that are entirely vibe coded. They're building course platforms, funnel builders, automation tools, and they're making 5 and 6 figures selling them. These aren't programmers with computer science degrees. These are marketers and entrepreneurs who learn to describe what they want clearly enough that AI can build it. Let me give you some examples of what you can build right now with vibe coding. You can create a complete affiliate marketing funnel with lead capture, email sequences, product pitches, and payment processing, all vibe coded. You can build a membership site with gated content, subscription management, and automated onboarding. You can create automation tools that connect different platforms and solve specific business problems. The key is understanding what people will pay for and being able to describe it clearly enough that AI can help you build it. That's a completely different skill set than traditional programming, and it's a skill set that entrepreneurs already have. You understand pain points. You understand what customers want. Now you can actually build solutions without hiring a development team. And here's where it gets really interesting for NetSuite users specifically. You can vibe code, custom dashboards, automations, workflows, and integrations that used to require expensive consultants charging $200 an hour. I'm not saying you don't need consultants for complex projects, but for standard customizations and automation, you can describe what you want and let AI help you build it. The tracking and optimization side is crucial. You need to know which traffic sources convert, which funnel steps lose people, which offers perform best. That's why I put together resources on tracking software and quality traffic sources in the description below. Building with vibe coding is step 1. Optimizing based on data is step 2. So why does this trigger the traditional software development world so much? Because it threatens the entire value chain that they've built their careers on. If you don't need 6 months of planning, 3 layers of approval, and a team of senior engineers to build working software, what happens to all those roles? The consultants billing $300 an hour for architecture documents, the project managers coordinating 18 different stakeholders, the QA teams running 3-week test cycles, the deployment specialists managing complex release schedules. All of that overhead made sense when building software was incredibly expensive and risky. But when you can vibe code a working prototype in a day, test it with real users, iterate based on feedback, and scale up only what works, most of that overhead becomes unnecessary. You still need expertise for complex systems. You still need architecture for large-scale applications, but for the vast majority of software products, especially in the small to medium business world, vibe coding is faster, cheaper, and more responsive to actual customer needs. Stay tuned. Part 2 coming up, as this story still isn't done. The guy in that tweet had 1,200 paying customers with 0 downtime. That's not chaos. That's working software that people value enough to pay for. The intervention that killed his shipping pace and stalled his revenue growth wasn't helping him. It was importing corporate overhead that made sense for a 1,000-person engineering team, but makes 0 sense for a solo entrepreneur. This is the divide we're seeing in 2025. On one side, you've got the enterprise world with its processes, frameworks, and overhead. On the other side, you've got entrepreneurs using AI to ship products and make money without asking permission from architecture review boards. And the gap between these two worlds is widening every month. Here's my take after nearly 30 years in technology. Vibe coding isn't the death of software engineering. It's the death of unnecessary overhead pretending to be engineering. It's the death of process for the sake of process. It's the death of architecture documents that nobody reads and approval workflows that protect bureaucracy instead of customers. The best apps being built right now are being built by people who understand problems deeply and can communicate clearly with AI to solve them. That's a different skill set than traditional programming, but it's not a lesser skill set. It requires deep domain knowledge, clear thinking about what customers need, and the ability to iterate quickly based on feedback. If you're an entrepreneur or business owner who's been intimidated by software development, this is your moment. You don't need to become a traditional programmer. You need to become someone who can clearly describe problems and solutions, work with AI to build them, and validate them with real customers. That's vibe coding, and it's killing the old guard because it works better for most use cases. I've put together resources in the description about tracking software for your funnels, quality traffic sources for testing your products, and examples of what you can build with vibe coding. Because the barrier isn't technical anymore. The barrier is knowing what to build and how to reach the people who will pay for it. Subscribe to this channel if you want more content on using AI to build actual businesses without drowning in enterprise overhead. The future isn't more process, it's better tools that let you ship faster, and the old guard hates it precisely because it works.